Great to have you listening in today. As with previous seasons, it is my hope that the guests and their stories that I get to share with you this season can provide you with the tools and or insights that you need to know that you can make it through whatever is happening for you now. And not only that, that you can have the life you want in whatever way you want that to look like. So let's get to it. I'm your host, Helen Morris, and this is The Beautiful Side of Grief. I would like to let you know that this episode deals with suicide, so please take care listening and make sure you're well supported if this is a triggering subject for you. It must rate as one of life's most challenging situations and distressing, having a loved child take their own life. This is what happened to Marinda K Dennis, my guest today, in the past year. So it's still really, really fresh for her. Her bright, vibrant 15-year-old made the decision to end her life. For most parents, this would be enough for them to check out for a couple of years as they navigate the whys. What was their child going through that got them to this point? What could you have done differently? The whys are endless. And also fervently wishing that the clock could be turned back. Marinda instead threw herself into her work, teaching 13 college composition classes in one term. Now, the beauty of this is what Marinda discovered was a population of students crying out in their writing, a huge 52% of the 300 youth she dealt with. So we're going to talk more on that and tell you a little bit more about Marinda and introduce her now. Marinda is an author and an editor, in addition to being a college professor of English. She's published in a few locations, most recently in an anthology she produced entitled Love Lingers Still. The book was inspired from the pain she felt after losing her teenage daughter Angel to suicide. She does guest appearances now to share her story and to help those who are grieving the loss of a loved one due to this heartbreaking modality. Her company, Energy Threads, now seeks to publish works that are specifically centered around themes of love, loyalty, and healing. It's a company that desires to help those who grieve, those who seek solace after difficult times, and those who are weary from the trials of this life. Now, I have to say, I think that just about summed up a large portion of the world's population in those three phrases alone. I think any one of us can relate to at least one of them. My intention for this episode is for you to draw strength from what Marinda has to share and know that that strength resides within you as well. I'm also sending you loads of love and hugs. Marinda, thank you so very much for joining me today to chat about the journey you've been on, navigating your own beautiful angel's death that has opened you up to helping so many others heal. So welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I think this is such an important subject to highlight and bring light to. So the first thing I'd love to discover is why you think you didn't collapse after what happened with Angel. I mean, it's quite recent for you still, and it's so devastating in the scheme of things. So what was it within you that turned you into a warrior instead of collapsing into the pain of it?
Well, the thing is, for a little bit, I did collapse into it. And that's actually included in the short story that I wrote for the anthology. But I knew I couldn't stay there. I knew that my son needed me and my husband needed me. And there were so many students who needed me. And I think that's what kept me from collapsing is I needed to be there for so many other people. And it gave me the strength to push forward.
So did that need to help others, did that overpower your own need to grieve and understand it all and to help yourself? I understand what you're saying completely because I did a very similar thing with my daughter and her friends and I felt that needs. was that very, very strong for you to reach out and help others?
It absolutely was. I even had one of my department heads. I worked for 4 different colleges this past term, and one of my department heads reached out to the VPAA and asked for special permission for me to take on an extra heavy class load that I normally wouldn't have been able to take on, so that I would have something to focus on. A lot of people were worried about me falling into alcoholism or turning to the anxiety medications and things of that nature. But in my family, when something goes wrong, we hide in our work.
Right.
And that is certainly what I did.
Yeah. So how difficult was it going back? I mean, it's different going into a workplace where you maybe have a small team that understand what has happened to you and they can support you and, wrap things around you. But you're going into a situation where you're exposing yourself to huge numbers of students and teachers and probably quite a big facility. That must have been really quite daunting.
Most of my classes were online. I had one campus that was face-to-face, but even that, yeah, it was daunting, especially when students started selecting their topics. For my classes, I always set it up to have a one-topic term, and the topic has to be personal to the student. And when those topics started rolling in, over half of them included mental health and or suicide as a possible topic for their research at the end of the term. And it hit like a ton of bricks.
So let's backtrack a little bit and share with us who your beautiful angel was in this life, how she presented to the world and what was so special about her. Because I know she was special to you. So let's understand Angel.
She was my miracle. I didn't think I could have children. Her father and I had been married for 2.5 years before I got pregnant with her, and we had been trying that whole time, and nothing. I had laparoscopic surgery to get rid of some endometriosis, and I had one miscarriage after that, and I had honestly given up having children. And then all of a sudden, there she was. Those 2 little lines on a pregnancy test.
Wow.
And I knew right then she was going to be special. And she was bright and vibrant and so full of life and so full of sass. She was in cross country and track, and she was one of 2 girls on the first all-girls wrestling team in the state of Nebraska.
Wow.
And that was huge. I was so proud of her. No matter what she placed, I didn't care. I was so proud of her for even doing that, because it was such a huge milestone for girls in our state and in our country to be able to have that sport sanctioned just for them. And she was really good at it. She was actually voted Rookie of the Year by every last teammate, all the boys and the girls. So she was impressive. And she was a force.
Yeah. Have you heard other people say to you, because I know in my own journey, and I have a daughter that was very similar to what you're describing, and I've heard people say, that these children that are only here for a short time are often larger than life. They are very special kids in some form or another, but they usually have these bright, bold, beautiful personalities. Have you heard that before?
I have, and that was definitely her. I mean, what 4-year-old tells their mother that you can't wish on a star because it's a big ball of gas in the sky?
Oh, yep. I understand that.
4 years old, and
Yeah.
that was her response to trying to sing "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" to her.
Wow. So you mentioned that she did experience mental health. How long had that been going from, and how did it show up for you? Just so that if we've got other parents listening, that they can understand that aspect of the journey you went through with Angel.
I want to preface with saying that her father was a very good man. I think he just didn't know how to love the women in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because her first instance of mental health showed up when she was 9, after her dad told her, "I don't get along with you because you're too much like your mom." And we were happily married at that time.
Oh my goodness me, that's heartbreaking. Oh,
And she was cutting after that. And she was stabbing herself with a pencil. And I remember watching her scream bloody murder crawling under her bed while her dad's trying to pull her out to have a conversation with her. And she was going after a pencil so she could stab herself with a pencil. We had to take away everything. We had to put locks on everything. I took her immediately as soon as I saw the marks to counseling and to therapy. And we were told, "Oh, she's doing so much better, so she doesn't need therapy all the time anymore." And then her dad died,
yeah.
and it was back to therapy. And she never got the closure she needed and the love and acceptance that she needed. She was just starting to build a strong relationship with her dad. He was finally listening. He was finally responding the way that a loving father would. And then he was gone. And so she didn't get that sense of closure because that was a relationship that was just starting. And so that hurt, and she had to go back to therapy for that. And then we had to move from New Hampshire back home to Nebraska. I needed to be closer to family. It was very difficult as a single mom with 2 kids, and that hurt her because all of a sudden all her friends who were there for her when her father passed away were yanked from her life. And then COVID happened, and all the friends she was just starting to build relationships with were yanked from her life. And it was just one tragedy after another for her.
And for you as well, I think.
Yeah. And then the April before she ended her life, her favorite person in the entire world died.
Oh,
It was my grandmother, her great grandmother, and we think it was just too much loss, too much pain, just too much. Because it was hardly a month after that she was gone.
wow. That is so much for any family to take on board. Just one tragedy after another, and my heart goes out to you, Marinda. The fact that you're sitting in front of me after going through that is testament to that beautiful inner strength that you have. And I know it's not about being strong. It's not that you intentionally want to be strong, but you need to survive, don't you?
Yeah, definitely one of
Yeah.
those things is fighting to survive.
Yeah, fighting to survive. And I am aware that, mental health issues arise regardless of the environment. And what I mean by that is that it it occurs equally in the best homes as well as in those homes that are considered not so supportive. And there is a lot of talk now about, ancestral grief coming through in our children and them carrying that burden as well to have to deal with in these lifetimes. how do you account for what Angel went through? Do you just think it was a culmination of all these events happening to her and her self-esteem being eroded by her dad to begin with without him realizing what he was doing? I mean, because parents, regardless of how they parent, I believe have the best intentions. They don't mean to erode a child's confidence or put them down. They often just parent off their own experiences and do the best they can in that way. So what are your thoughts around that?
I honestly wish I knew. I have no
Yeah.
idea what led to this. She had, according to her coworkers, she worked at the local swimming pool. She manned the slides and the concession stands, and I was told that she had had the best day ever the day before it happened. That same week, earlier on in that week, we went to the zoo as a family, and I bought the really good pass so you can go on all the rides, and I let them go on all the rides, and they got to pet the stingrays and, have this beautiful experience. And she had just a couple of months prior, she had gone to the college of her dreams to do the collegiate walkthrough and get a sense of where she would be going, even though she was only a sophomore. Normally that's reserved for juniors and seniors.
Yeah.
She had all this going for her. And so the fact that this happened, what makes it so tragic is nobody has been able to figure out why. There was no note. There was no messaging to anybody on any of it. There's no trace and no rhyme or reason for this to have happened that we've been able to find.
And that can make it so difficult as well. Your natural instinct, I think, as a parent, is to understand why this happened. Where was she at? Why did she feel that she couldn't be here? What I've learned, and perhaps that was one of the things that I did that helped me so much, was that I never asked that why question. I never, because I just thought it has happened. It doesn't matter why. And going back is not going to change that situation. So for me, I never asked the why. I just accepted that had happened. How much did that why impact you, that need to understand?
Every day, because I'm the one who found her.
Wow.
And we thought we had found her in time. We administered CPR. She did the throw up like they said that, is supposed to happen when you bring him back. She never resuscitated. And we were in the house when she did it, which made it even more heartbreaking because I didn't hear a thing. And the why that it impacts me the most is, did she do it at that time because she was hoping beyond hope that I would come and check on her sooner, when all I was trying to do was show her, I trust you, I know you're responsible, so I'm not going to hover over you.
And that is it. What you were doing for her is really, really commendable. And I think the biggest thing is, I think, look, I don't know, but I think you can think that you could have changed things if you'd only gone into the room 5 minutes earlier, or if you'd only done this, or if you'd only done that leading up to it. But I think it's often about that. Doesn't matter what you do, that is going to happen, that there is that outcome. So it's almost like reaching a stage where you can make peace with that, isn't it? Because you're left here behind with so many unanswered questions. And like you say, you went through all those different scenarios. There was no note, there was nothing that she'd said or talked about to her friends. So really, there was no inkling behind it all, was there? And it must have been Oh, incredibly heartbreaking for you then and finding her and for you right now. Oh my gosh, my heart just goes out to you, like, again, Marinda, what a brave thing you're doing to talk about this. Okay, we are going to move on because I would really love to know about what you discovered in those writings from your students. I know, although they were going to sort of mirror in some degree what you may have been experiencing with Angel, did it surprise you the sheer number of students that were hurting? And what ages were they? What age range are we talking?
It did. I have everything from dual enrollment students all the way up to non-traditional students who are going back for their degree even though they've retired from a different job.
Oh, okay.
So I have a very wide variety and wide age group, and I teach at 4 different colleges. At one point, it was 6 different colleges across the nation. So I have students from the East Coast to the West Coast. I had a student who was enrolled in one campus from Europe.
Oh, wow.
And would schedule meetings with me even though it was the middle of the night for them. So just a very wide variety all across the board.
So when you started reading these compositions, what sort of things were they highlighting?
The first thing that surprised me is I have a prompt for topic selection. And the topic selection specifically says you have to be able to write 3 papers on this topic. And the first is a personal narrative. Personal narrative means it's a story about themselves or someone who's very closely related to the person. And even with that stipulation, 52% could honestly say they wanted to write about mental health and or suicide.
Oh,
We have a nation, we have a country, we have a global silent pandemic right now with people who are hurting and they don't know how to get that help and they want to understand it. When you write about something, you write to understand. You're not just writing to convey a message to somebody else, you're writing to convey a message to yourself. And 52% of these students wanted to understand. I had one student at one campus who had lost a friend to suicide, and they just wanted to understand what could have been done to prevent it. I have another student who wrote a reflection about how they could relate to a poem because they just lost a friend to suicide. I have another one who wrote a personal narrative about a grandparent who tried to commit suicide. This is happening everywhere, and people are too ashamed to talk of it. They're too afraid to speak about it because of the stigma. There is a stigma attached. I feel it every time I walk around town. I feel it every time I try to reach out to my close friends in the area. I feel it when I talk to my own siblings. There is a stigma, and it pains, and it hurts, but we still want to understand it.
Is that stigma around, help me understand, is that stigma around people just wanting to brush it under the carpet? They don't want to talk about it. They don't know how to support you. Explain to me how that looks for you.
I had one person who told me, "I'm sorry, I haven't reached back out to you. I don't know how to talk to you." I had another person who just said, "I'm sorry, I can't have that around me right now." I mean, that's okay. That's where they are. That's where they are, and that is, I accept that. It doesn't make it any easier, but I accept it.
So, oh my gosh. So, understanding that there's this huge huge pandemic, epidemic of people out there that are crying out in their pain and thinking of suicide. What do you feel they need to know, and what do they need to know? What do you think that they need to know, and what's not being talked about? How can we make that easier?
I would want them to know that they matter. I'm speaking to you directly right now. You matter. And if you leave, you're going to leave a hole in this world that nobody can fill. You might impact people you don't even realize you impact. Maybe it's just because you smile at them at the store. Maybe it's because you send them a funny meme on social media. And maybe it's just because you're the only one who will talk to that individual. I don't know, but I know that you matter. Whatever it is, there is a niche in this world that you fill. There is a purpose that you fill.
Wow.
And if you leave, that is going to be felt. And it could have deeper impacts than you know.
Yeah, we definitely need that you matter movement, don't we? For people to understand that, every single person is perfect as they are, as they came into this world. Everybody has their own unique journey and purpose here, and it doesn't matter if you're completely different to the person next door to you, that you are worthy of being here and you matter. Your life is important. What you have to share is important. Wow, that's a very, very strong message. And I applaud you for doing this and being that voice. Having been through the experiences with your husband, was he your husband when he died, or was he your ex-husband?
He was ex-husband for less than 6 months at that point.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I was grieving the marriage, and then I had
Yes.
to get him. And I didn't stop loving him. I just couldn't be with someone who would treat my daughter like that. And I needed him to have a wake-up call so that he would treat her better, which he did. It worked, and he started treating her better.
Oh, gosh, so you've just got layer upon layer. However, you know, I believe that all my experiences, I had a lot of trauma coming through from my childhood, and I believe that that has all helped me to where I am today, to help me understand across many different platforms what people are experiencing and what they're going through, and to have that empathy and that understanding, and for them to know that too, which is really important. You can't fake that. You either get people and how they're feeling or you don't. So I think what I'm trying to say here, and I'm not doing a very good job of it, but what I'm trying to say here is that, with all those losses on top of each other that you have suffered, have actually given you this massive foundation for being able to relate on so many different levels of grief to your students. And what has been their reaction when they've reached out to you wanting to talk about these or write about these hard topics, and knowing that you understand?
Well, for one, I know they feel safe because they do talk about these topics in their writing. And you only do that when you feel safe with someone. And that's definitely something I've tried to do, is I have tried to create a safe space for my students so that they can explore. Because
How do you do that? How do you create that safe space for your students?
on some level, there is the freedom for them to choose any topic they want. And they love that. The fact that they can do that without repercussions. I mean, let's face it, if you're in high school and you're writing a high school level paper, it has to be quote unquote appropriate. And at the collegiate level, we don't have to have the quote unquote appropriate style topics. Students can choose something so long as they can look at academic information to back up their stance. And so the fact they have that freedom is that first layer. And the second layer is I'm always there if they need me. Shoot me an email, send me a message through the learning management system. And I try to respond within 24 to 48 hours to those messages. I have on my phone apps directly to the learning management system just so I can do that. And that has really helped to build that relationship with the students, that rapport. I also leave comments. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please reach out to me so that they always know that that door is open. That's so important. They need to know that that door is open for them to walk through.
If they choose to write about these really deep subjects, concerning subjects for them, do you wrap in some support for them to do that? Because it can be quite cathartic, can't it? To understand what you're going through, to put it on paper, you actually have to kind of make sense of it, don't you?
The supports that I offer are just the how to write the paper. These are the steps you need, but what you do with it is up to you. And so again, it's that layer of freedom that students have to express themselves. That's so important.
And that's what you support them with, no judgment, that it is what it is for them and however that looks. What an incredible job you are doing. I don't know if you realize how many lives you're impacting just by allowing them to do that one single thing. I mean, that is a truly, truly special gift you have, Marinda.
Thank you. Sometimes I wish that my daughter would have realized that open door. I mean, we had what I'd call safe zone talks all the time. I started them when she started clamming up when she was about 7. She started to not want to talk about stuff, and so I implemented safe zone talks where she wouldn't get in trouble no matter what. She could come talk to me, whatever it was. But somewhere along the line, she decided she didn't need those safe zone talks anymore.
Yeah, sorry, and it could even be, and I'm just putting this out there, I have no idea, but it could even be that it was just a split-second decision that came out of the blue for even her, that it may not have even been something that she was thinking about doing or planning on in that particular moment, that crazy decision took hold and she actually executed it without her even realizing. What I believe she will be doing, though, and I don't know whether you believe this or not, do you have contact with her? Do you feel her around?
I try not to think about that because it makes me cry, and I don't do so good with emotion. I prefer to bottle it up and just focus on work and just get through the day. That is kind of, I'm still in survival mode, so that's kind of my modality.
Okay. I completely understand that. And maybe with time she will let you know. I believe that she's probably guiding you to be able to do all this incredible work that you're doing now. And I think she'll be there to support you when you finally take time for yourself. Yeah.
I don't doubt that this was an inspiration from her. The anthology, this is the anthology Love Lingers Still.
Yes.
The project was born out of that pain. It was an I need to do something, and I need to do something productive that's going to help other people. And I know for a fact that came out of what happened. And the contributing authors who added to this project were absolutely incredible. I mean, Ellen Meister, she's an 8-time critically acclaimed novelist. She didn't even hesitate to say yes to this project.
Wow.
And that was so beautiful of her. And Gregory Norris, he is a prolific short story author. I absolutely love and adore him. And he didn't hesitate either. He said, I have the perfect piece. I'm sending it now. I have another author I've worked with quite a few times who he didn't even hesitate. He said, when's the deadline? I have a former professor of mine who wrote the textbook on Sylvia Plath, and she didn't hesitate either. It took her a little longer. She was like, "Can you extend the deadline? I've got another book coming out." So I pushed the deadline back for her a few times because I wanted that piece so bad, because something told me it needed to be in there, that it was something that really had to be told. And then my own mother, my mom, I did not know how creative a writer she was, and I told her, "Am I allowed to cuss?" Because I told her, I said, "Mom, no offense, I'm a bitch as an editor. If it's not good enough, it's not going in."
Oh, I love that.
I read it first as a daughter, and I cried my eyes out as a daughter and as a grieving mother, and then I read it again as an editor, and it made the cut. It was so profound with the imagery that she used and the humor that she laced in there to give this project just another amazing layer of just grief being told.
Wow. That is beautiful. So this is a book, a collection of short stories, is it?
Stories. There's a prose poem, and the prose poem is magically woven together. There is no other way to describe the prose poem that was contributed to this piece, and it's from a grieving mother. But the imagery and the way it wraps you in, it's like a spell being woven over you as you're reading it. Just a spell of pain and grief and relief.
Is this about the birds singing at the window?
No, hers is this. It's so hard to describe, but she has Scottish language in there as well, and it's in about 6 different movements throughout this prose poem, and it has to do with, the water and the land, but the imagery alone is so.
Read us a passage from it, if you don't mind, if you can find it, and because I'd love for people to hear what comes out in this beautiful writing.
Part 1. Haim. Your horror filled my lungs with salt water. You were the first full breath I took, and each breath after. As I stole and wound with veins and blood, you stole with me. Through cobblestone streets and past the dead in the kirkyard, beside the ghosts of rebellions and feral goats. You lit fires and painted my cheeks with ash. You bared pendulums like breasts and beggars' pouches to the beat of drums, blessed us by all the fucking that ever was tucked in among the hills. You were transgression and magnificent.
Wow. Powerful words.
And that's just the first one. And the rest of it is just as powerful.
I can understand. And so how long did it take you to pull this together and get it out? Because, gosh, you're still quite fresh into your grief. How long has it been?
My daughter passed on June 10th of this past year. And so it's been, my birthday was the 8-month mark of her passing to the day.
Oh, and then you've got a book out.
So I conceived of the idea in July because I needed to get the pain out. And I sent the invite out to authors in August. They had pieces into me by the end of August into September. I had the website up by the end of October, start of November. I had all the edits. The artist was phenomenal. I'm remarried, and my husband was in the military, and one of his soldiers actually did the cover art for this.
Wow.
Because she was so passionate about this particular topic.
Gosh.
So it's just been, everybody has worked so amazingly to get this all put together. I had the final document ready to go by mid-January, and I had my test print by then, and I went through all the edits, and then I had to order another test print, and so the book released at the start of this month. So it took, from the conception of the idea until the release, it was 7 months. From my daughter's pass
That's incredible.
was 8, so
Especially when you're liaising with so many different people who are contributing to it. And so, yeah, I really do think you had some divine guidance there from your beautiful angel. Now, and that's her actual name. Let's clarify that because that is her name, isn't it? Angel.
her full name is actually Evangelina,
Ah,
and it's a family name. Her great-great-grandmother was Eve. My mom's name is Linda, so if you take out the D, you have Lena, and she was my miracle. So you put the angel in the middle, Evangelina.
beautiful. I love that. Yes, and signifies what she is, an angel in your life. What other coping mechanisms have you used to help you cope?
Well, I teach fitness classes. It was really difficult to go back to teaching aquatic classes at the pool where she had been working. So they were very sweet this summer. They gave me as much time as I wanted off, but I eventually did go ahead and go back to teaching the shallow water aerobics. I'm currently teaching yoga classes at the local medical center once a week. Those are techniques that I have to feel connected to other people because I need to feel that connection and feel connected to community.
Yes.
And at the same time, it allows me to exercise, which helps with, all the feel good hormones that you need released in the body when you're going through stressful periods in your life.
Yeah, just release that out and hopefully some of the other grief that's, sitting deep within you that can come out in that exercise as well because that truly is, whether it's walking, whether it's aqua jogging, whether it's yoga, doesn't matter how you're moving, that is such a fantastic release for getting that energy moving through your body and releasing some of that built up grief that resides within you. So, wow, yeah. I want to ask you now, how is your son coping with all of this and what have you wrapped around him to help him?
My son's actually on the spectrum. He's high functioning. With the initial test that I showed his most recent therapist, she said she's surprised how high functioning he is because of where he started. He's coping, he's muddling through, I think. He likes to self-isolate a lot with his Legos. So we're trying to encourage him to get out and to play with other kids more. I actually drive an hour and a half one way just for his therapy appointments because I wanted to find someone who was very specialized to what he needed. And so that's
Wow.
the biggest support is probably his therapist who has gotten him to the point where he is now, making sure that he can go to the park, that he can get time outside, that he can play with his Legos. His big coping mechanism, even when he was little and he couldn't speak, he actually lost language for a while and we had to work and fight very hard to get his language back. If he would self-isolate and he would play outside by himself. And he's doing some of that, but he's also recognizing now that he does need to engage with other kids his age, and that is helping. And some of what helps is a lot of his sister's friends, if they're at the park, they'll hang out with him. And to him, it feels like a part of herself here when they do.
Oh,
And so when he looks at them, he sees her, and it helps.
that's beautiful.
So if they ever listen to this, I hope that they know that they're making a really big difference in his life and that it means a lot to me as well that they would do that.
Yeah. And what support have you got to help you deal specifically with all of this?
I have my mom. I have my best friend from high school. I refer to them as sisters because we were so close. I mean, one of them is 4 months younger than me, and we knew each other from like diaper age.
Yeah.
And the other one came in the middle of high school and ended up needing a place to stay at one point, and she went on family vacation with us. You know, I have them, and they are amazing. And I have my husband, and I have my husband's mom. You know, when we were waiting in the hospital to find out the outcome one way or the other, I remember my husband took me by the hand and he said, no matter what, we'll get through this together.
Sounds like you've got a beautiful man by your side.
And I knew. I do. I'm so lucky to have him because I wouldn't have made it through any of this without him. And, you know, another support Andrew has Jim, and he's amazing. And my son loves him like a dad, and you know, they go and they do things together, and they're always saying, "Well, it's your fault. You left us unsupervised." Go work on projects. They'll go work on the boat. They'll go work on a car, and that helps. You know, it's that connection. Without connection to others, we are lost.
Yeah, we need it, don't we? Even if we tend to be the loners of this world, we need to reach out and connect with other people. I mean, I could quite happily, you know, take myself off and be in isolation for quite some time, and I have to actually make myself go and visit people.
The same. That is why I teach fitness classes, because otherwise this little room right here, this is where I would stay quite happily, and I would not need anybody. Just slide some food through a little catch hole in the door or something. You know, throw me a water once in a while. I don't need to leave.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So, yeah. So what else would you like, specifically around writing? What do you think are the key things that people are getting out when they're writing? And it doesn't have to be perfect writing, does it? Let's just clarify that from the start.
No, it doesn't. We authors call it word vomit. We word vomit onto the page, and I can tell you that word vomit works. Word vomit is powerful, and it is one of the best ways to just get something out. I'm pulling up right now, trying to find a poem that I wrote when my soul was just screaming, absolutely screaming out in pain. It's called Shattered. Oh, scars run deep. Shattering pressure from inside. Pain cracks the hard shell of her humanity. Light beams out at odd angles as rageful reds and bitter blues. Arm clamps across arm, a final attempt to hold it all in. Boiling acid erupts, forced outward in shrieks and wails. Knees buckle, dropping the frail, weakened woman to the dour ground. Regret bites deep at broken heart, dropping her further in despair. Clouds gather, raining down, dampening cloth and chilling bone. She sobs, shattered, broken, in a world apart and alone. Rays of light peek through, warmth returning hope, if only in hints and glimpses of what is yet to come. Her shattered heart in shambles, rattling in her chest as she rises from the dark to stand anew. She glues the cracks. Scars run deep, sharing new beauty, her beauty, with those who dare to look beyond the surface.
Oh, I like that. I mean, like I can feel all the pain in it. But I like so many people are that. They're the shattered souls who are putting themselves back together and perfectly. like the gluing the pieces up, and you want to be able to see that everything that you've been through and you've come out the other side of makes you who you are. And you don't want to have to hide that. You want to be able to have that acknowledged.
Writing is not having to hide from anyone, not even yourself. Writing is getting out everything. And you don't have to say what it is that's causing the pain. You can use these images that are vast and sharp without saying what happened to you.
Yes.
The power of writing.
Oh, it is indeed powerful. Very, very powerful. Wow. Marinda, I just cannot thank you for just opening up to us in the way you have, sharing with us your vulnerability, your journey, the pain you've been through and what you're still going through, the incredible number of losses you've had on top of each other. That's pretty incredible. I always finish up with a couple of questions, and I always want to understand people's answers to these because it gives me new perspectives, and I think it's also good to focus on in life too. So I would like to know, what is the best thing that has happened to you so far today?
So far today,
Mm-hmm.
I am making great progress on the textbook I am composing that is supposed to come out in the spring. So,
Oh my gosh, when you talk about keeping yourself busy, you're writing a textbook.
I am. Yes, yes. And the anthology, I was compiling all of that while I was teaching 13 composition classes and taking 2 doctorate level classes of my own. So that's
Did you have any time to eat or sleep?
a lot. Sometimes.
Oh my goodness. Do you feel compelled to keep up that pace?
No, one of the things that I learned last term when the term ended was that it is not healthy to do that much at once. And it is not healthy to stay at that fast of a pace because other areas of your life do suffer. And while, yes, I did need it for that one term to be able to get through, so I didn't have to think, so I didn't have to process my grief, so I didn't have to feel anything, it is not a spot I wanted to stay. And I knew that. So I do not have nearly as many classes this term. I am still pursuing my doctorate degree. I had at one point considered dropping out and not finishing because I was so heartbroken. But I am finishing my doctorate degree in addition to a master's degree in publishing at the same time. Yes, I am still keeping busy. But I'm not taking as many classes at once. So it's one class for this program, one class for this program, so that it's not this breakneck speed. And I'm not teaching as many classes at as many campuses this term. This term I have 2 campuses, so it's a little easier to keep my scheduling straight. And I am not currently working my way through edits for an anthology. I'm saving that for the summer.
By anybody else's standards, that is still an awful, that's a huge workload that you've saddled yourself with. So I am just hoping and praying that amongst all of that, that you have some time for some peace, for some calm, for some healing to happen, for your heart to heal. And
I do actually. I get to leave my office space by a certain time. I'm cooking dinner, and as long as I don't have class or meetings that night, I'm done.
okay.
And I don't have to think about anything else. So it's a lot more cohesive and balanced
Mm-hmm.
than it was last term. And at the end of the day, my best piece of healing happened when I get to curl up on the couch with my husband with his arm wrapped around me and just snuggle up and watch something. We don't have to talk. We just watch something. At other times, we'll sit there and we'll talk about anything and everything. And those are my times to heal because that's when I feel the most connected and the most grounded, is when I'm right there with him.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love that. I love that you've got that. I love that you found that at a time that you most need it. That's really, really special. Okay, my next question is, what are you most grateful for? I think you probably just answered it, but anyway.
My husband and my son. My son is a miracle. My son was in the car with his dad when his dad died on the interstate at 70 miles an hour. And my son was hospitalized for 4 months. He was in the PICU for 2 months. We almost lost him numerous times. He was intubated 3 times. He had numerous surgeries. There was a time when his heart rate hit 213 beats a minute, and I know because I still have the picture that I took of the monitors. And I don't know what I would do without my husband and my son. Because
Wow.
they are the ones who keep me going, and they're the ones who make sure I don't overwork. They're the ones who are dragging me out of my office space to say, come on, let's watch a family movie. Hey, I want to go to the park.
Well, I'm glad you've got them.
They're the ones.
Because I do worry about you overworking.
They do too, but we've actually found a balance since last term, which is really good. So I am most grateful for my husband and my son, and even my little brat dogs who love to annoy me. I have both doors shut right now because I know that my daughter's little corgi is out there just waiting to come in. Otherwise, she'd be sitting back here behind me, and she'd be making her noises.
Right. So when you find yourself going through those moments where things are, not going so well, that they're turning to custard, that you don't feel like you've got the control that you'd like to have, what is your go-to to pivot out of those moments?
I have a lot of different go-tos. I'll call my mom. That's a big go-to. I'll call my dad. That's a big go-to. I've got a pendulum. I love my crystals, so I have a pendulum, sometimes focusing on a pendulum.
My apologies, listeners. I have lost the last bit of this interview with Marinda. Not quite sure how that happened. Anyway, I know she would have wanted you to be left with the following takeaways. Firstly, that it takes time to heal, so please be gentle with yourself. Don't be afraid to lean on others, and that sorrow and sweet can blend. Finally, through helping others, you help yourself. Marinda, you have my utmost respect for sharing this journey with your daughter, Angel, less than a year after losing her. You were raw, vulnerable, loving, and honest. And through this account, we can all learn from you and your beautiful Angel. And I know that it was your intention. All the links for this episode are in the episode notes, along with some fabulous suicide awareness resources on Marinda's website, Energy Threads, and of course, that incredible anthology, Love Lingers Still. Thank you from us both for listening in today. Thanks for listening. I hope you got some real value from this episode. Let me know how I'm doing, or if there's a topic you'd like covered, by clicking on the Healing to Be You Gmail link or going to the Healing to Be You website. To get notified of new episodes, hit the subscribe button, and please share if you know of someone who could benefit from this episode. Until next time, be kind to you and take good care.